And the bad thing about being homeless is everybody's clumped together. It's them, you know what I mean? But them are individuals. And unless you come with like Pastor and Mayor did that the last time, where they started to individualize people when they got to the place. The fear of the unknown, and just basically, you know, being that homelessness carries a stigma anyway. And so they're talking about bringing it into my neighborhood. You know, I can understand their fear for it, but I mean, I would just say to them that it is the program that I went through. I don't know who other than the mayor. I know a few other people's names, but that program worked.
The triage shelter was particularly unique in that it was the city's first low barrier shelter, and we were able to bring in folks that had been outside for decades and had been sort of traditionally not welcomed or able to connect to the shelter system by virtue they have possessions and pets and partners that they were not willing to separate from in order to obtain a shelter bed. And I think one of the things to realize is that the folks that we serve are our community members. Easily 80% of the folks that we serve, born, raised here in Sacramento, and are in their neighborhoods because that's what they know.
Try to imagine that if we, throughout Sacramento, in lots of different communities, did this, what would happen? You know, what if there were 5 shelters operating at the same time, each moving 200 chronically homeless people off the streets in 16 months? I mean, we're going to start to make a serious dent in the existing population and put ourselves into a position where we can manage the people that are coming into the system, which they are. There are people who are 1 paycheck away from living in their car and 1 ticket away from losing their car.
A recent homeless census in Sacramento County found that homelessness had increased 19% since 2017. Homelessness is one of the most urgent and complex issues for cities across the country, and Sacramento is no exception.
The days of calling the police department to come arrest our way out of this homeless problem are probably behind us. Unless that Boise case gets overturned by the Supreme Court, we're stuck with it, and that's just our new reality. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing, because we've had a paradigm shift, right? Instead of saying, how do we call the police or police to come out and arrest these folks? We're looking at, okay, what are the root causes of homelessness and how do we fix that? And it's a big paradigm shift, but it's a positive paradigm shift.
The city of Sacramento is committed to solving homelessness for individuals and families, and to making our community stronger and safer for everyone in it. Low barrier shelters are a key part of this strategy. And that's why the city is looking to open new shelters in critical areas across Sacramento.
The immediate change should be that you'll see people who you used to see sleeping outside in your community now engaging in services and in the shelter. And the other important thing to remember is that even if they say no on day 1, it doesn't mean on day 2 they can't say yes, or day 3, or day 20, or day 50. Council has committed that any shelter that the city opens will come with mitigation that's appropriate for the community. And what that typically means is an increased presence for police. We've also already stepped up our public works presence and solid waste presence. And then the third thing that we've done and intend to do in future shelters would be employing the Downtown Streets team, which is a great nonprofit who works with folks experiencing homelessness or recently who exited homelessness to do beautification and cleanup in the community. And so they're an additional resource that's very visible and can do a lot of mitigation, a very localized mitigation. We're also trying to ensure that the shelters provide a path into the next step of life, and whether that be a transitional program or jobs or employment. And we also want to respect the community that the shelter is in. We want to make sure that the shelter isn't an imposition to those communities, and so we want to make sure that it's safe and secure and well maintained and well staffed. We are attempting to model our shelter approach like most large West Coast cities have done. San Francisco, Portland, LA, San Diego, all of them are making similar attempts to change the way that shelters function as part of the larger homeless system response system.
The sprung structure is a semi-permanent structure. It is insulated, ventilated, climate controlled, has a beautiful lighting. It's really, from the inside, a spectacular space. High ceilings, really airy, and a really dignified place to be. When you are inside a sprung, you do not feel like you're in a tent. We're all safer when people are inside, and we know that navigation centers can help the neighborhood by offering them a resource for people to come in and get that shower, get that meal, and begin their pathway out. And so, because navigation centers are operated by invitation only from our homeless outreach team, we don't have people lining up outside. You don't have people, reporting to the Nav Center, knocking on the door and saying, "Can I please come in tonight?" And then if there's not a bed, hanging out outside. Because they're open during the day, people are not asked to leave at 8 or 9 in the morning and then, hanging out in the neighborhood all day long. I've been involved with navigation centers for a few years now, and I've really seen them change people's lives, really dramatically improve people's health, get them on a pathway to housing, and it's incredibly rewarding. If you go out and are talking to somebody on the street and what you have to offer them is socks and a sandwich, you know what, that is one thing. But if you can offer them a bed, a meal, a shower, and a place to be safely, we are going to be so much more successful at resolving encampments and engaging people who are on the street. And just as somebody who's been working in this field for a long time, it's incredibly rewarding to see people relax, to get a good night's sleep, to come in and leave the navigation center and you don't know if they're staff or a guest. They've had their shower, they're well dressed, and they're on their way to live their day and live their life. And homelessness is not a permanent state of being, and the navigation centers really help us support people in that pathway off the street and back into housing.
How does all that make you feel? How does it make you feel?
Makes me feel great.
This is what's happening everywhere in the state. And so the key to making the neighborhood better and also dealing with this growing homeless problem is to build these triage shelters and focus on the people who are homeless in the neighborhoods. And that's exactly what we did off Railroad Avenue in North Sacramento. There were a lot of skeptics and a lot of people who wondered, would this bring down the neighborhood? And the experience was actually just the opposite. It was not perfect. A lot of people who come inside after a lot of prodding, they're very sick and they need a lot of help. And so nothing's perfect here, but when you compare what's happening now in our neighborhoods, what's happening now in South Sacramento, what's happening in North Sacramento, what's happening in every part of the city, and you contrast that with bringing people indoors, and not just to shelter them indefinitely, but to actually provide them with the intensive services around mental health or substance abuse. We must both reduce the homeless problem and also improve the conditions in the neighborhoods around homelessness. And that's exactly what we intend to do.